What's up, Whisper Nation? We are back at it. It is another live show brought to you by your boys, the Fantasy Whisperers. We got Big Travy. I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks, and today we got a special episode. We are talking about 5 quarterbacks that are going to potentially help you win your championship this year. So you don't want to go one of those early quarterbacks. You want to wait a little bit. We're going to give you some guys that you will want to take a look at because they just might help you win your league this year. All that and more on this episode of the Fantasy Whisperers.
Right here.
Couldn't find the button there, Travis. My bad.
It's all good. It's all good. Whisper Nation, if you are hearing my voice and seeing my beautiful mug, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and share this on whatever platform you're using to watch the stream. It helps us with the algorithms, helps us grow the channel, helps us continue to grow this community that we've got over in Whisper Nation and bring you fantasy football content daily, Monday through Friday. If you're new to the Fantasy Whispers, go ahead and hit us with a subscribe or a follow on whatever platform you're using. And you can also find all of our stuff over at thefantasywhispers.com, including the 2021 Fantasy Football Draft Kit presented by the Fantasy Whisperers, which is fully loaded and ready to rock and roll this season and help you just dominate your draft, which we know is possible only if you get that thing. It's loaded, man. And it's only $15, Johnny. So make sure you get your copy, Johnny.
Yeah. I got mine. I've been using it during this Scott Fish Bowl, looking at those consistency charts. Travis helped me out. Speaking of which, I know we got an episode here, but I am on the clock, and I keep going back and forth between whether or not I want to go Cortland Sutton here or take my third quarterback in Mac Jones. Now, Mac Jones isn't necessarily like the greatest pick ever as your quarterback 3, which is why I do have Cortland Sutton rated like pretty high, especially if they do get a guy like your boy Aaron Rodgers traded there. How much would that be awesome? I think I'm gonna do it, dude.
That'd be awesome.
I think I'm gonna draft Cortland Sutton. I'm going to gamble on the quarterback. One more round. One more round.
Do what you got to do, brother.
This is definitely not a good decision.
Jacob Bley in here says Suns in 4. Obviously,
right.
Big Suns fan. He's rocking and rolling there. Johnny making his Scott Fishbowl pick here. But yeah, as Johnny said, we're talking 5 quarterbacks that can help you win your league, Johnny. We're going to talk about some mobile guys. We're going to talk about maybe not so as mobile guys, just guys that are not, they're being slept on, not talked about enough as guys that can bring you home that ship this year. So Johnny, I'll before we get into this, I wanted to talk a little bit of news and notes. We've got some news and nuggets.
Oh, yeah. We got some dimes.
So, the drill. I'm going to roll through a couple of headlines here, and then I'm going to let you pick which one you think is the most important for fantasy football purposes. Number 1, Denver Broncos. There's the Denver Post, Ryan O'Halloran, is saying that Javonte Williams will be the leader in the backfield. He's going to lead in attempts and rushing yards at the end of the season, in his opinion, this beat writer from the Denver Post. So we've started to see this. This isn't the first time people have reported about Javonte, the takeover happening. Johnny and I have talked about this. We talked about it on the Mock Draft Monday show, so keep an eye on that. In Las Vegas, the Raiders plan to play Drake some at wide receiver, too. Mike Clay of ESPN says the Las Vegas Raiders expects to play a more versatile role, including taking snaps at wide receiver. We've seen this in the past. We've heard about this with Kareem Hunt and other running backs that are really good at pass catching and get moved to the slot or moved to a wide receiver position. We'll see how that unfolds there. Keep an eye on that. And then we have out of New England, N'Keal Harry ready to move on. Mike Garafolo from NFL Network says the Patriots wide receiver and his agent formally requested a trade Tuesday on July 6th. Johnny, of those 3 headlines we went through, which one is standing out the most to you, especially for fantasy football purposes?
The one that's standing out particularly would be obviously like the Javonte Williams news. I think that's one we'll probably touch on the most because that's the one that people are going to have the most questions on, Travis, in my opinion, or at least that's what we've been fielding so far. I do want to make note, though, N'Keal Harry, I'm sorry. Like that dude, I don't even know where he could even go to resurrect his some people were trying to say, oh, come to the Cardinals. Like, no, dude. We have you not seen our wide receiver room? Like, we don't need him
anymore.
No. And then I do want to also, I gotta, hand it to stepmom Lauren, give her a shout out. She was the one that first kind of had me sniffing around this Kenyon Drake, whether or not he was actually a potential value or not. And she brought up this wide receiver thing and how she was hearing rumblings that they were planning on doing this. So it is very interesting to take note of for the Drake, especially if you're in like a PPR. He does have some upside, but I don't want to talk about either one of those, Travis. Like, that's all I want to say on those. I want to talk about Javonte Williams, because Javonte Williams was a guy that me and you, we absolutely loved coming into the draft. We really liked him. We had him, up there as our number one running back, and which might surprise some people, but we believed in his talent. And then what happened? We were live. We saw it, right? Broncos traded up to get him. And then there was already, the speculation started to rumble. People started looking at Melvin Gordon's contract, saying there's only 1 year left. And then they made another interesting move, Travis, and going and signing Mike Boone. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't understand why they did that. He is a very good running back, even though he let some people down a couple of championships ago. But what I will say is he is a good running back as a good backup. And so some of these tea leaves, we have to remember, like, this GM wasn't the GM that signed Melvin Gordon. So some of the tea leaves are really indicating that Melvin Gordon could be pushed out of this, off of this team. He could straight up, there are rumors he could straight up be cut. And then you're looking at Javonte Williams being the lead dog in this back. And I think he's a great target for those. Right now he's going in like the 6th round, Travis. I think that's a tremendous value for a guy. You got to remember, like, Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, like, these guys were going in like 5th and 6th round last year. And if you were able to grab one of these guys, even if you had to sit on them, like, they end up being and helping you win a championship. I think minimum he ends up helping win a championship, if not, being a consistent RB2, because we know Denver's going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like, here, we love Javonte Williams' tape. We just need Melvin Gordon to kind of take the back seat. It looks like he's already kind of doing that to himself by skipping OTAs. I think these beat reporters are just seeing what we saw on the tape. Javonte Williams is a great explosive back, probably way more explosive than Melvin Gordon's been in the last few years, if ever. And given the opportunity, this could be really good. I do have concerns about the quarterback situation, but if it goes to Teddy Bridgewater, that's an offense that's probably going to stay on the field more times than not. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. Check downs to the running backs could still happen. We saw Alvin Kamara still be very useful with Teddy Bridgewater under center. So there's a lot still at play. I think Denver's getting slept on just because of Drew Lock's downside. The other thing is, like, Drew Lock has a lot of room to grow. There could be a situation where Drew Lock really takes this offense to the next level. I know Johnny's going to sit over here and talk about Denver adding Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to happen. Everybody just needs to realize that Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere, and he's playing this year the full season. So
I do to back up what you're saying, Travis, about Drew Lock, though, and the potential upside he does have. Like, he did have 3 weeks. I know it's only 3 weeks in the last year, but he did have 3 weeks where he finished as a top 10 quarterback. 2 weeks of those he finished as a top 5. So, we talk about some of these other quarterbacks, making a jump. Lamar possibly making a jump as far as throwing the ball and things like that. If Drew Lock can just get a little bit more accurate, then this team has the weapons to actually move the ball. And yeah, maybe it is Teddy Bridgewater that is the safer wider quarterback there. But, there is upside for that offense.
Absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of upside in these quarterbacks that we're about to talk about that we believe can help you win your leagues in 2021. But before we do, I got to let Whisper Nation know that it's that time of year again. The Fantasy Whispers Draft Kit is officially here, and it's going to be better than ever this year. Our draft kit is fully loaded with premium player projections and rankings, consistency charts, and over 3 years worth of data, cheat sheets, strength of schedule charts, and so much more. That TFW Draft Kit is available for an industry low of only $15. Head on over to thefantasywhispers.com to get your kit today. I will drop that link right in the chat as well if you are watching live. And if you're listening, just head on over to thefantasywhispers.com.
Kit, it's more like a giant stack of books. It's like 170 plus pages,
Yes,
Travis?
175 plus pages of just pure artistic and just dominant charts and profiles and just all these different tools that you can help look at to get a snapshot of what it takes to win your league and what it takes to, be that dominant player within your league. Everybody's looking for that extra edge. We're just giving you another way to get that, and for only $15. So make sure you go check it out. Dropping that link in there now, and then head over to thefantasywhispers.com if you're listening to the audio version. Johnny, we're going to talk about quarterbacks here, 5 of them. We got ADP here. We get that from 4for4.com. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you do. They got great ADP over there. I'd say the industry standard for ADP over there at 4for4. Mm-hmm. All right. The first quarterback is yours, Johnny. Tua Tagovailoa, ADP at 1204, going in the 12th round, just about the middle of the 12th round, early 12th round. QB 19 off the board in 12-team leagues. Johnny, when we look at what's going on in Miami, they had every chance to maybe get a backup plan for Tua. They didn't do so. They instead added weapons. Jalen Waddle, you talk about Will Fuller, you talk about a healthy Devontae Parker, a hopefully healthy Mike Gesicki. They brought in Malcolm Brown. They're investing in Mike Gesicki or in Myles Gaskin. I want to know if you're just buying in on all these weapons around him, and if you think there's a situation where he's going to run enough to give us that extra edge that we love in fantasy football.
I am 100% buying into these pieces that they brought in. I think they realized and saw what Tua needed in order to really excel in the NFL and excel in an offense. And so they went and got those pieces. They struggled with the deep ball because they didn't really have a guy that would go down and could race down and get the ball and actually be good at contested catches. So what did? They went and got one of the best in the league in Will Fuller. Now, we always bring up the injury stuff, and Will Fuller stay healthy a full 17 games now? And yeah, sure, that could be seen or is yet to be seen, but they now also have a backup plan, like you said. And when they drafted Waddle can now also slide over and take that deep role if needed. And they've played together, Tua and Waddle. So you have that connection. What I do like is, for the time being, and to start off, Travis, they will have a very nice 3 wide receiver set in Waddle, Will Fuller, and Parker. Parker should be that dominant outside wide receiver. I like him a lot as well for Tua. And, I love the fact you brought up the rushing, right? Like, does Tua actually have that rushing upside that could potentially, that we tend to see when you have to, make that big quarterback jump, Travis? And I'll say that low-key Tua does. Most people don't realize, because he didn't get a full, year's worth of games. And, in some games he was kind of being pulled because they didn't want to risk him getting injured and other things like that. But the fact is, Travis, when you look at the games when he played, he averaged about 3.6 carries per game, which doesn't seem like a significant amount, but that was 18th in the league last year for quarterbacks. Again, he only played in 9 games as a starter. And then you look at, when you break down those games even a little bit further, see okay, well, what is the upside? Where do those rushing come from? And is there some other, rushing touchdowns are where we really like our Konami code quarterbacks to get those massive points, right? And this is what's nice, Travis. Tua, Loki had 3 rushing touchdowns in 2020 in 9 games. So basically, a 30% chance he was going to have a rushing touchdown per game. And when you look at that extrapolated over an entire season, that was 10th in the league for just having 3 rushing touchdowns. If he gets up into the 7-8 rushing touchdowns, guess what? That's what got Ryan Tannehill to finish as a top 8 fantasy quarterback last year, because he had 6 rushing touchdowns. You don't need this monster grip Lamar Jackson rushing type of game in order to make him fantasy relevant or have that Konami code boost. Tua can definitely get you there, Travis, and I definitely see it happening this year with the pieces that they have around him. I think they're going to make it happen. And we got to remember, Tua's whole thing coming out of college, above anything else, it wasn't the rushing, it wasn't how good, smart he was at reading defenses. It was the fact he was so accurate. They comped him to Drew Brees as far as accuracy and arm. Now you're putting the pieces around it. I think he could really put it together, and I'm excited for Tua. I think he's going to be a late round dart throw that I'm going to be taking more oftentimes than not. And, confessions over here, I took him as my QB2 in the Scott Fishbowl, and, I'm pretty jacked about it.
Yeah, QB2 range is very, formidable. You look at a Superflex league, definitely like it. I think that Tua scares me that I just don't see the upside. We also just have not seen a deep threat on his team, and now we've got two of them in Waddle and Fuller. So maybe that was the missing piece. We've seen that before. I mean, Will Fuller's numbers with Watson even increased the great Deshaun Watson's numbers when Will Fuller was with him. So you look at that number and you like, or those numbers, and you like that. We'll see what and what's nice about Tua, he's priced so low, you can take that chance on him, and then he's not going to sink your team if he doesn't pan out. And you should know early on if he's going to pan out, if he's going to take that step early on in this offseason.
Yep.
All right, moving on to our next quarterback. I'm going to go with the Tiger King himself, Joe Exotic, Joey B, Cigar Joe Burrow. He's going in at the end of the 8th round, 8-10 right now. He's the QB 13, just outside the QB 1. And I just think this guy is set up for success. You've heard me talk about the Bengals being maybe the Cowboys of the North as far as the talent at wide receiver and at running back, the talent of, or should say the lack of talent on the defensive end, the way that this team is just set up to run or pass the ball in a lot of just in droves in this season. Last year, you look at Burrow, wasn't exactly the model of consistency. QB 18 in points per game. That was 17.4 points per game. But it looks like he's full go. Adam Schefter reporting that he's going to be good to go. I know the concern is maybe the injury. It looks like he's going to be ready to rock and roll week 1. And you look back at what he was doing, and there's some signs that show us he's going to actually be pretty set up to do some big things here. Averaged 40 attempts per game last year, and that was on 646 attempts. That would have been, if you kept his average of 40 attempts and stretched it out, extrapolated, as Johnny likes to say, over the whole season, that would be 646 attempts. That would have led the league by over 20 attempts last year. So you love that. He's not the most mobile guy, but if he's not going to be mobile, we want him to throw a ton, and he was definitely doing that. He was on pace for 4,000 yards. He's threw for over 300 passing yards in 5 of 9 full games played as a rookie, and he averaged 270 passing yards per game. So you like that. In standard scoring, he averaged 18.6 points per game with 4 QB1 performances and 4 QB2 performances in his 9 full games. So you like him shaking off the rust of a rookie season, a COVID offseason. 3 rushing touchdowns, Johnny. You mentioned Tua. 3 rushing touchdowns in those 9 games would have put him on a pace for 5.6 in a 17-game season. We like that. That's about the Dak Prescott mark at rushing touchdowns in a season. You look at the addition of Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon being healthy, an offensive line that just got former first-round pick Riley Reif. This is actually an offense that's set up to do exactly what it did last year and even more by pushing the ball in droves down the field. I really like what Joe Burrow set up to do, and what I really like more is I like his price. Like, look, I get that Herbert's the sexy pick. He's got the loaded offense, and he's going to go a lot higher, but I think Joe Burrow is the better bet. Pass on the opportunity cost it's going to take to get yourself a Herbert and get Joe Burrow later on and redraft, and you're going to be liking what you get out of Joey B, I believe.
It's really interesting, Travis, and you bring up a really good point, naturally, because you're like one of the best in the business. But I want to note that, like, in our quarterback rankings, for example, we have Herbert ranked a few spots ahead of Joe Burrow. And so you might think, well, why do you guys believe, that he could potentially break out if and Travis said, wait on taking Herbert and take Joe Burrow instead. And what you have to look at is opportunity cost. You got to see where Herbert's going. In most drafts, he's going 6th, 7th round. And Joe Burrow is going much, much later than that. So it's better. You're better off grabbing another piece, another running back, dart throw, or taking a wide receiver and grabbing Joe Burrow, because The upside is just about the same in our opinions. Now, I do want to say that I was a little concerned with looking at the consistency charts because I thought, looking back and remembering, I was like, Joe Burrow was really, really good in those, first few weeks that we saw him. And looking at the consistency charts that are also in the draft kit, it was a little surprise to me that he didn't finish more as a QB1. I thought he did. However, I will say a big part of the reason why he didn't necessarily finish so high all the time was, yes, they were throwing the ball a lot, but a lot of them were incomplete passes to AJ Green because they were struggling to get on the same page. Now we know he had a rapport with T. Higgins. We know that he's going to have a rapport with Jamar Chase because he's played with him before. And Tyler Boyd is a very good, underrated wide receiver. And we know they like to spread it and throw the ball. This defense is bad. So if there is a guy that people are kind of sleeping on because they kind of forgot about him, it would be Joe Burrow. I do like the Joe Burrow call.
Yeah, and it's baked in, Johnny. Like,
yeah,
if your argument to me is that, oh, well, Joe Burrow wasn't as consistent. Okay, well, he's going as QB 13 right now. So I'll take that. Like, I'll take the upside that I think this is a former number 1 overall pick, a guy that looks to be more poised than like a Baker to push the ball down the field more consistently. And yes, he's not at Herbert's level yet, but I don't think it's going to take that much to get, the gap between the two in fantasy. And I think the way you're having to pay for Herbert, like, just take your chance and go get Burrow, and I think you'll feast off of that.
Yep.
All right, Johnny, before we get to the next, the last 3 potential QBs that can win you your league, I want to tell Whisper Nation about Patreon. We're nothing about your support, Whisper Nation. We are nothing without your support, Whisper Nation. Man, these live reads are killing me. And we just love that. We're proud of this community we've built together. We just love you guys over there. If you feel it upon your heart to help us continue to grow this family and chase the dream, consider joining us over on Patreon. You can show support at the $5 and $10 levels. And your benefits include access to our exclusive Discord channels, entries to sport card giveaways, increased odds for landing a spot in our 2021 Listener League. Those spots are filling up fast. And bonus fantasy content that is available only to our patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/the Fantasy Whisperers today and join the nation. Johnny, you have been quietly getting louder, if that makes any sense, on Jameis Winston this offseason, and he is your second of 3 potential league-winning QBs. Jameis Winston currently going at ADP 1407 as the QB 25. Look, I think that we're in agreement. He's probably going to win this job, and he should probably win the job given that he's an actual quarterback. But how short will that leash be, Johnny? And is this offense really good, or is it just like 2 guys that we're talking about in Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas? Are we actually about to see, without a Drew Brees or a Teddy Bridgewater who's safe with the ball, are we about to see a big drop-off for the Saints this year?
I think we're actually going to see the opposite. I think we're going to see a huge boost in a lot of these Saints players because typically, like you said, you could only rely on one player in Michael Thomas and then one running back in Alvin Kamara. Sometimes you could sneak in, a Murray for a flex spot, at the running back position. But basically, that was it. Tre'Quan Smith, every single time it was a complete dart throw as to whether or not he was going to be able to, if he was going to be fantasy relevant. And he had like 1 or 2 games that he gave you. But other than that, it was nothing. Here's what I like. We know what Jameis Winston is. He's a gunslinger. Now, does he turn over the ball a lot? Yeah, he generally does. I'm not going to deny that. He's a 30 for 30 guy, and I'm not talking in a good way on the ESPN Classic. I'm talking 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. That does not look good no matter who you're talking to. However, I will say we have seen Sean Payton now with 4 different types of quarterbacks, and he's been able to win with all of them. Or he's been able to move this offense in an effective way and in a different way with each of them. And I think that this is going to unlock Tre'Quan Smith because there's already been quotes, coming out that Tre'Quan has said himself how he's been talking with Jameis Winston, and Winston's just telling him, hey, dude, keep running because I could chuck the ball as far as you think I can, and you just need to get under it. Just keep going. I don't care if you're double teamed or whatnot. If I want to go to you, I'm going to you. And so I think that's going to help open up the back end of this offense, because that's what has been missing this whole time. We talk about Teddy Bridgewater hated to go deep. That was his, that was a complaint with Carolina. He was good at it, but hates to go deep. Drew Brees, obviously, we know he was noodle arm 2.0, and he couldn't get the ball, further than 15 yards. Like we saw players literally wide open, 25 yards from the line of scrimmage, and players were just leaving them open, DBs, because they're like, Drew Brees isn't going to be able to throw the ball there. You're not going to be able to do that with Winston. And so that's also going to help Michael Thomas, because Michael Thomas is a very, very good wide receiver. He's an elite wide receiver. And what do we see with elite wide receivers? They can transfer from quarterback to quarterback. Now, will this production go down? You could argue, sure, maybe it will, because he won't be getting, 160 targets that are, quick slants. But I will say, his playbook and route tree could open up a lot more, and he's talented enough to get open. And Jameis, we know, will throw if you're open, and he likes to throw the ball. So I do believe that Jameis Winston is going to be the starting quarterback. I don't think it's Tannehill, I don't think it's Hill. And I think that he will have over 4,000 passing yards, because he's done it, over half of his career. He's had over 4,000. The last full season he played, Travis, he had over 5,000 passing yards. And we've seen his touchdowns get up there, 25, 28, 30. So he can definitely put up touchdowns. It's just, can he reduce that those amount of turnovers, which I do tend to believe he can correct, because he got that 2020 LASIK eye surgery. So I think he will no longer see the same color of jersey.
I mean, he's got the video out, which is all over Twitter, of him looking downfield and calling out numbers. It was just an awkward ass, workout video. But whatever, Jameis.
Dude, I know you were doing the same thing before the show.
I mean, yeah, that's how I understand how to read these. I did the same thing. That's how I'm not reading the live reads well, because I needed the LASIK surgery like Jameis. But look, all things aside, we know he's a character and all that. I just wonder, there's two things at play against him. One, the 30 for 30 guy that he is, that you mentioned. Okay. You mentioned that attitude. Oh yeah. His whole idea with Traquan Smith is like, just keep going. Even if you're double covered, I'll throw it to you. Yeah. That's what he does. He throws into double coverage. He gets picked off a lot. But I think the other thing here is Sean Payton's affinity for hashtag not my quarterback, Taysom Hill, because Taysom Hill is going to snipe things from the red zone. This is the thing about Drew Brees that we hated over the last couple of years. Taysom Hill was going to be used in the red zone. He was going to come in. And now with a guy who does not have the ego of Drew Brees or the resume of Drew Brees, Sean Payton could start running some weird dual QB stuff. And don't tell me he's not going to do that, because this is Sean Payton. Like, he will do whatever the hell he wants to do. So there's just some concern there naturally with how cute Sean Payton could get. But make no mistake, if anybody can unlock something in Jameis Winston, it will be Sean Payton. And the price that you can get Winston at, once again, like we mentioned with Tua, even more so than Tua, the price that you can get Winston at is going to be baked into any risk you have, and you might as well throw him out there. And then, dude, if it ends up being some weird show, you move on to somebody else.
Right. Well, and then here's what the upside, like we said, Travis, like that's what you're you're drafting for, because he's such a late round dart throw right now that there's like no risk to it. Check these out. You're telling me you don't want a guy who in 2019, when he had that full finish with, granted, a different team, I get it, but still 5 top 5 finishes, Travis, out of his game. 33% of the time he finished as a top 5 quarterback. And then he had 8 top 8 finishes in 2019, which landed him at 53% of the time he was a top 8 fantasy quarterback. Sign me up, even if you're only going to play him during good games.
I get it. Different offense. Much different offense, much different players. I'm not saying that Michael Thomas isn't great. He's a great wide receiver, but he is nicknamed Slant Boy for a reason, and that may just be because of Drew Brees, right? We talked about this before. Maybe it's Drew Brees, but it may be because he's not that guy to go down the field like a Mike Evans. He's not that guy to do that kind of thing where you saw what Winston had in Mike Evans and Godwin. At any time, he could push the ball down the field. I mean, he was even doing it with Brashad Perriman. Now, you mentioned Traquan Smith, the burner that they have there. I think he's worth it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just voicing some of the concerns I have. Obviously, you'd be pairing him with another QB if you were going to in redraft.
You're over here watching Hey Arnold, I guess, because you're saying like stoop kid's afraid to leave his stoop, but slant kid's afraid to leave his slants, dude.
Yeah, maybe he is. All right, so moving on to my final QB and second to last QB that we think could be potentially league winning this year. It's Trey Lance for me, Johnny. And I know, look, I've been trying to talk you into Trey Lance all offseason. Ever since we looked at the tape, I've been trying to talk to Johnny about Trey Lance. But let me talk to Whisper Nation right now, okay? We know a couple things. We know that this offense is fantasy friendly. We've seen Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Jimmy Garoppolo come in and do things in this offense. And obviously, San Francisco saw that too. And what they said was, we're going to trade a boatload of capital, including their 12th overall pick, a 2022 third round compensation pick, and a first round pick in 2022 and 2023 to the Miami Dolphins to move all the way up to number 3. Okay, then they were very hush-hush. They leaked things like Mac Jones. They leaked things like Justin Fields. And then they went out and made Trey Lance do a second pro day with just their playbook. And that, to me, was all after I had looked at the film and looked at Trey Lance and said, whoa, this guy can chuck the ball. He can run. He is really the complete package. He's a big guy. This is some really fun stuff. The common misconception about him was actually that he was raw, because you looked at him, well, he's just a great rusher. And let me talk about that, because he's Konami code capable. You down with KCC, Johnny? Yeah, you know me. He ran 192 times for 1325 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns in only 19 games. His college rushing per game averages rank him ahead of Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and Kyler Murray in college. Only Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton averaged more rushing touchdowns per game in college than your boy Trey Lance. 30 touchdowns to only 1 pick, so he keeps the ball. He doesn't turn it over in 19 games. And everybody's going to talk about how raw he is. He ran a college-style offense. He checked defenses at the line of scrimmage. This was a guy who had to do the things you got to do in the pro game in the mental aspect, and he did it. Yes, over only 19 games at a small school, but he did it very, very well. The college production was there. So we can't knock him just for going to a small school. If he went to a small school and excelled the whole time there too, you've got to give him some benefit of the doubt there for dominating at a small school. And then you look at this San Francisco line. It's projected to be top 10 again per Pro Football Focus. And then you look at the weapons around him, Johnny. We love Brandon Ayuk. We love Deebo Samuel. We love George Kittle. I mean, if we love all that syrup, we got to love the pancakes that are going on top of it. You know what I'm saying? Or vice versa. I love where Trey Lance is going right now. We talked about the ADP, Johnny. He is going in the 12th round at 1207 as the QB 20 off the board. I just saw him get taken in Scott Fishbowl as somebody's second quarterback. Look, I know the concern, Johnny, that you're going to elaborate on here a little bit is that he isn't going to maybe get the start right away, if at all, this year. I don't know if they're going to have a choice. If this guy is what they thought he was, they moved up all the way to do it, and then he starts showing even a little bit of that in practice, they're going to have to make the move just based on what they gave up to get him.
My whole thing is, I don't think we would see the reason why I'm not sold on the fact that they would do that move this year is just because of the fact that Kyle Shanahan, he's not on the hot seat. Even though, like, I think technically you should be, because realistically, where you at, dude? You've had, 2 top 3 picks in the last 2 out of 3 years. So, like, realistically, I understand we say, injuries and all this stuff, and his offenses look, competent, but it's like, I believe he's probably a better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. That's just my opinion. But what I will say is that he is not on the hot seat. And so I don't know if and this division is very, very competitive. And so I don't know if there is a way where he doesn't at least see the bench for the first half of this season, at least. And then maybe they do turn it over to him, which is why I'm not necessarily, unless I'm in like a best ball league, I would take him, Lance in a best ball league, because I think that's a nice start throw. You don't have to worry about it, whether or not he's going to play. It just automatically goes in there. But as far as like, when I'm talking about draft capital right now, I find him, I think it's really interesting. I love that you brought up the Russian Konami code, because that's where his value, I definitely see that value 100%. But I want to say this is very similar, or what we could see is very similar to what we saw Lamar Jackson a couple of years ago, right? Like, we knew about his Konami code, all this stuff, and they were like, oh, no, but right now we had Joe Flacco, and then it took, Joe Flacco got injured, and then that was when Lamar came in and he kind of, saved the day, and he was a little bit of a league winner there. And then people really got upon board that next offseason. We were one of those that was pushing Lamar as that guy. Yeah.
Well, halfway through, he got it, right? So he took over the job and they changed the playbook. I could definitely see a situation like that. We've talked about it before where their buys in week 10 and they could wait all the way till week 10, maybe give it over to him then. I will just say this. Better throwing prospect than Lamar Jackson was coming out of college. Better thrower of the football is Trey Lance.
Anybody's a better throwing prospect.
Slight dip in rushing over Lamar because Lamar is so prolific as a runner, but not that much. As I just mentioned, one of the best rushing quarterbacks we've seen come out of college is Trey Lance. So for me, I think it's worth it, man. Go grab Trey Lance as your last round pick, or if you got to take him in that 12th round, you go maybe take him in the 11th or 10th, and then pair him with somebody like a Kirk Cousins for early on in the year, or somebody who's got a good schedule, and you can find that schedule within the draft kit at thefantasywhispers.com and make sure you peg your QB that you want to open the season with. But Trey Lance has league winning upside, and there's no doubt about it.
I will say that San Francisco has such a nice, they have one of the easiest schedules for quarterbacks for the whole season. So it is, even if you kind of have to go that combo of sounds gross, but Jimmy G and him might not be terrible. But that's just why I'm more on Fields this year, is just because of the Nagy is on the hot seat and you would see him turning over the keys a lot quicker. But like I said, I think
Allen Robinson is there. Don't get me wrong, and I love the internet loves Darnell Mooney. I just don't know if I love this offense as much as I love San Francisco's surrounding Trey Lance. And so for me, that's where my argument on upside is just like Trey Lance coming into this Ferrari versus Fields going into a defensive-minded cold weather team that's going to kind of grind it out more often than not. I could see that being a situation in Chicago, but. To each their own. I like Fields as my second, as another guy. If I were to have three guys here, I would have picked Fields, but I only had two. Johnny, you had the final one. Our fifth and final QB is none other than Jalen Hurts, Johnny. His current ADP is 7th. He's the highest drafted QB we're going to talk about, but he needs to be mentioned here because he might be the last one in that QB1 range with the Konami code at QB10. We got to ask a couple of questions. Is this offense going to be good enough, Johnny? And, here's the thing. Joe Flacco waiting in the wings. Does this Eagles team even like Jalen Hurts?
I got to give it to Travis because he did want to talk about Justin Fields as his third, as a third guy, to make the 5. And I said, I had to do it for Whisper Nation. I had to do it for myself. I had to stand up and say, no. I'm taking the third guy, and it's going to be Jalen Hurts. That's just what it's going to be because I need to hammer home to Whisper Nation that Jalen Hurts, I understand there's concerns about this offense, and can it really be elite? And, can it really move the ball as much as we want it to? I'm going to tell you that Jalen Hurts has such a Konami code that's being unrecognized right now that is what's going to propel him to be a top 5 quarterback this year. I have him projected to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I really wanted to get him in the Scott Fish Bowl. I really did. It was hard to pass him up. But I will say that I will definitely not be doing that more oftentimes than not this year, as well as in a lot of my leagues. I plan on having a lot of Jalen Hurts because, one, his the opening schedule, first 5 weeks, we always talk about it's such a good move to look at these first 5 weeks of a season and get off to a great start. You need a good start in fantasy football. You don't have to have it, but we always like it. It allows you to be a little bit more flexible down the stretch. And Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles as the quarterback position has a top 5 easiest schedule for the first 5 weeks. The second thing is when you look at that rushing Konami code, Travis, it is remarkable what this kid is pushing up or putting out, and people are really not talking. Yes, I get the concern, the rumors with the Joe Flacco and how they're not particularly committed. Yeah, the Shane Falco, and they're not, committed to Hurts. And I just think it's a tactic. I'm a little confused by these tactics myself, Travis, but Jalen Hurts, 12 rushes attempts per game. when he came in from weeks 14 to 16 of last year. He didn't have any fewer than 63 rushing yards, Travis, in a single game. That is a touchdown, basically, that you're just getting because Jalen Hurts runs so much. 59 completion percentage, people will look at that and say, hey, like that makes me concerned. You talk about Lamar Jackson and how he's not a good thrower, but yet here we are with Hurts. And I'll say, one, you don't have to invest the draft capital that you do in Lamar Jackson. That's why I have a big issue with Lamar's throwing. And two, I would have taken Lamar's passing options over what Jalen Hurts had last year any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And I'm pretty sure Hurts would have done the same. And now they went out and they addressed that this offseason by getting a number one in Devonta Smith. I like him a lot. I think a lot of people underestimate how good he is. He's a lighter weight wide receiver to go on the outside. But this guy, there's a reason why he played for one of the best colleges in football and he won the Heisman Trophy. Like, this kid is good. Then you're able to move, Rieger, who they also drafted in the first round. You're able to move him to his natural position as a wide receiver too. They still have Fulgham. He was a good wide receiver for them, but like probably not the best number one alpha for them. And, and then you're going to get Goddard back, and who knows what happens with Ertz, but this offensive line should be better. But the last piece I really want to point and hammer home on why I'm so sold that Hurts is going to be that breakout guy is because there is a guy that we've talked about now on the show once. I'm going to bring up his name again here, and that is Herbert, Justin Herbert. Everyone is going out and they want to tell anyone that they can about Justin Herbert and how he is going to be this amazing quarterback again this year. He is the guy that you're going to want to go out and get. And I'm telling you, I would pass on Herbert and get Hurts because look at the head coach the offensive coordinator that we all, Herbert was able to develop under is now the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And what do we know? He knows how to scheme an entire game plan around a certain type of quarterback. That's what he had to do because, as they came in, it was Tyrod Taylor was going to be their quarterback, and he instantly had to switch over to Herbert. He was also the offensive coordinator when they had Phillip Rivers. So he's had different styles of quarterbacks, and they've all been somewhat productive. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's a little bit hard to say because he only played one game. But I do like the fact that he is now being coached by an offensive-minded coach that tends to be quarterback friendly, especially when it comes to fantasy production. And Travis, before I kick to you to rebuttal anything on my Jalen Hurts, I got to just mention Justin Herbert last year, 5 rushing touchdowns, had over 150 rushing. Hold on, I have to check that. I was going to say 150 seems really high, actually. Don't quote me on that. I'll get Herbert's rushing attempts and just I'll bet it right now. But I do know he had 5 rushing touchdowns, Travis. I think I was going to say over 200 rushing yards is what I meant to say. He had 55 carries, He had 55 carries for 234 rushing yards. And so that was, 3.7 per game. That's exactly what Hurts was getting last year, or less than what Hurts was getting last year. So I definitely think there's a lot of upside there.
Devonta Smith, too, is somebody that's going to add like a safety net in this offense on top of Dallas Goedert, because that's a guy that's going to get open. Like, that's what Devonta Smith does. He gets open. He's not going to be an over-the-top guy, but they got a Jalen Reagor to go ahead and do that. You've talked about Fulgham, some other guys in the offense. Hurts scares me because I don't know if I trust Nick Sirianni. I don't know if I trust his offense. I don't know if I trust the Philly line. But he's got some weapons in his path, and he's got some ability to combat that with his rushing upside. And that's what we want to see anyways. So for me, I think he's correctly priced. I think he's definitely one of the last guys you're taking in the QB1 range to try and win you your league. I think he belongs on this list. I just think I might be taking a guy who's a little bit safer in his range and then going for one of the younger guys or Tua or some of these other guys we talked about later on, because I think Hurts might just be that last little bit of draft capital that's just a little too high. I do think he's correctly priced, though, and I do think he's got all the upside in the world. One thing I like to say about Hurts is I believe it was a Big 12 championship game that he played in, And afterwards, instead of like going out to celebrate, he was back in the gym that night. So it just proves to you, and he's been quoted as talking about like, I want to act like the Rents do every day. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's a great thing to say. We want to see that. And that could be the one thing that kind of puts him over the edge for you. He's a worker. He's a guy that's going to go out there and get it done. So I like the story. I think the team is a little bit dicey, but he could definitely rise above that with the upside he's got. Whisper Nation, we want to know who your favorite QB is to win your league in 2021, as we've dissected 5 of them for you right now. And if you want to find out any more news and nuggets and jewels that you can use to win your league, head on over to fantasywhispers.com and download our draft kit today. We will be posting more results from the Scott Fish Bowl. Johnny, any last words? I'm on the clock right now, and I'm looking at Chase Edmonds or Kareem Hunt here, and I've been putting out feelers. Look, I love Chase Edmonds. I think the upside is there, Johnny. I have concern about his touchdown upside with James Conner on the team. I have concern, James Conner's no slouch in receiving in his own right, too. And we've been talking about James Conner's contract a lot, but maybe that's because he knew that he had to sign a deal like this, and Arizona knew they could get him on a deal like this because of his injury history. And maybe that's the reason why Conner's actually in on a lower deal. I'm starting to have a change of heart towards Edmonds, who I get why he's now floating down here in this range for guys. What say you? You've got your finger to the heartbeat out there on Chase Edmonds in Arizona.
I'm full Edmonds. I think will Conner gets potentially that goal line work? Yeah, there is. I do think he'll get some, but I do think that they have all intentions in the world to give Chase Edmonds this full on shot to see if they want to resign him after this year. He's in a contract year. I just don't want to. I'm not going to doubt that. I've listened to a bunch of beat reporters that are all saying the same thing, that this should be Edmonds' show to start. Now whether or not he can hold up and all that, that's to me more so. I mean, I do think that people are a little bit unaware or unsure of how this backfield's going to break down, and that's why you're seeing a little bit of their value pushed down. But I also think, you also saw part of it was that people got majorly burned by Kenyon Drake last year, even though he returned the same value you drafted him. So people are a little nervous for that, as well as, a lot of people are projecting James Conner to be more so like that lead dog, but they're not necessarily sure. So that's why it does make sense where he's going. But again, I do think that there's a lot of value right there. I think that for those people who draft him, he's going to be a nice RB2 for you with some RB1 upside. Now, will he be, a top 5 running back?
Are you taking him ahead of a guy like Kareem Hunt?
So this is interesting. I would take
specifically in SFB. Like I don't know if I need to take. Look, I only took Zeke so far, so it would be okay. I'm going to take Kareem Hunt to kind of stay in the safe zone at RB, and then continue to stack more wide receivers before I hit running back again. If I go Edmonds here, though, am I swinging full upside for Edmonds and then trying to get maybe another couple other running backs down the board that could potentially win out and get the job? I think. I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm a little lost here. I think I want Hunt to stay safe, but I think in SFB, you got to kind of be swinging for the fences, right?
Yeah, I like to swing for the fences, but also when it comes to Kareem Hunt, the one thing that I did kind of pick up, that he wasn't necessarily as consistent of an RB2 as I thought he was. When Nick Chubb was playing with him. Hold on, I'm trying to find his exact breakdown here on our draft kit of the weekly starts. But when you start going through here, yeah, okay. So yes, we know that if anything happens to Nick Chubb, then he's dynamite. He's going to be an RB1. But when you look at, weeks 11, 12, 13, those were when Nick Chubb kind of came back, or even if you look through from weeks 10 to 15, Travis, Kareem Hunt only had 2 finishes. He had a week 10, he had a 13 finish, and week 14, he has a 4th overall finish. Other than that, it was RB30, RB36, RB34, RB50. And he's had a couple other even Even before that, week 1, he was RB26. So he's not as much of a lock as an RB2 as I thought he was with Nick Chubb. So you kind of need Nick Chubb to go down in order to get that true, real nice value. I would tend to go with Chase here. I think Chase has the higher upside. I also think he has relatively the same floor, in my opinion. But again, if you're wanting to go major upside, if Hunt does go, or I mean, if anything happens to Chubb, Hunt's more likely to be that RB1 than Chase would be. So it's, I don't know. Whisper Nation, what do you know? Right, I just leave you with a question. I would tend to go Edmonds.
I think I'm going to go Chase. I think the more I think about it, the upside's there, and I should grab that. He'll at least get the crack at it. I'll know early on.
And if you're really scared about it, you can just draft James Conner a couple rounds later, and then you'll have that backfield locked up, and then you don't have to worry about it.
All right, Whisper Nation, thanks for joining us on another live show. We'll see you Friday. Keep looking out on our Twitter and Facebook and everything for our updates on Scott Fishbowl. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I'm Big Travy. We are the Fantasy Whisperers. We're out.
Peace.
Right here.
Oh, hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw and you want to learn how to dominate your own draft and win your own league, head on over to thefantasywhisperers.com and grab your copy of the Fantasy Whisperers Draft Kit today. Or click the link in the description below. And if you're still not sold, check out one of these videos.